team building experiences that actually work, that actually cause change, right? Because we all know, most of us in the personal development industry, we know what doesn't challenge you doesn't change you.
Welcome to What I Meant to Say. I'm your host, Wendy Jones, founder of Be Better Media and a mom of 4, passionate about human connection. Throughout my journey, I have experienced many What I Meant to Say moments. But since life doesn't give us do-overs, I've created a space to reflect and tell our stories again, with a little more grace for ourselves and the hope that we can help others and be better for having listened. Welcome to What I Meant to Say. I'm your host, Wendy Jones, and I'm here today with Dave Albin. He is the founder and CEO of Firewalk Enterprises, and he's got quite a recovery story and a lifelong struggle to strength story that I am really excited to dig into today. But thanks for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having me, Wendy. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so I know there's a lot of resilience and just deep connection that I had with your story when I was reading your bio. And I'm excited to do this because I'm really, really taken by the concept of what we can learn from each other through leadership and just our ability to dig deep when difficult circumstances come our way. And I know that you've worked for Tony Robbins and you are currently doing the Firewalk Academy. But before we get into that, can you let me know and our viewers a little bit about your early story and kind of what got you to where you are today?
Yeah, of course. Happy to share that. Two months before I was born, my biological father, who was a pilot in Korea, he had somehow hit his head. I don't really have a lot of the details. All I know is that they put a plate in his head when he to save his life. Well, it also took his life. A couple of months before I was born, he complained about pain all the time. He turned to my mom and said, I don't know how long I can take it. And then again, 2 months before I was born, he said, I'm going to the grocery store, and we never saw or heard from him again. So when I was born into a single mom. At that point, she already had two boys from another man. And we lived in a 1-bedroom apartment with another cousin, a first cousin, the 2 half-brothers, my grandmother, and my mom. So there were 6 of us in a 1-bedroom apartment, and we, were right down the street from Hollywood High School. And so, my mom came from that group of individuals who I like to say their generation saved the world. They literally did. When my dad was that raised me, he was overseas in Europe fighting the Germans. My best friend's father's dad was in Pearl Harbor fighting the Japanese, and all the moms were home, and they did everything. They built Jeeps, they built tanks, they built airplanes, they built munitions. I mean, they did it all. They were probably one of the hardest, bravest generations of our country's history. And so my mom, my biological mom, was known as Rosie the Riveter, right? Because right? So she worked for McDonnell Douglas. She built airplanes. So they weren't afraid of hard work. Plus they came through the Depression. So, they didn't throw anything away. They fixed everything. And so they just were so resourceful. Well, Mom was working at the Roosevelt Hotel, the famous hotel in Hollywood, and she was a server, and she worked her butt off, and she did the best she could. And she got to a point when I was 5, she just couldn't do it anymore. She couldn't feed me, is the bottom line. So she did a very loving thing. She put me up for adoption, and her sister, which is my aunt, right, adopted me at the age of 5. And so I moved from Hollywood, where we were living, to Long Beach, California. So now my uncle, right, is Bob Albin. He's a highly decorated officer in the military. He's an officer. He's career military. And, I had the perfect life, literally. It was wonderful. We went camping all the time. There was, I had everything I'd ever want or need. And again, it was a wonderful place to grow up in the 60s in Long Beach, California. I mean, it was perfect. And then on the first day of summer of 1964, my mom, I'm in the TV room, and they called it the TV room back then, right?
Right.
Black and white television, probably watching, who knows, Andy Mayberry, I don't know, watching something. And Mom said, hey, come in the kitchen, your dad and I need to speak with you. And they set me down. And again, this is the very first day of summer, 1964. And my mom put her hand on my hand, and she looked at me with tears in her eyes, Wendy, and she said, what we need to tell you, David, is we're not your parents. Oh, okay. Well, what does that mean? What do you mean you're not my parents? That's like walking outside and seeing the sky's blue, and you look at it, and you go, the sky's blue. And well, no, it's not. Well, yeah, it is, right? So that was very, very confusing to me. And then she went on to say that, your biological mother is your Aunt Dean. And I remember thinking, I don't even like her, right? And the reason I didn't like her is because she was always touching me. Anytime she was around me, she wanted to cuddle me and hold me and touch me and kiss me. Well, duh.
Yeah.
Right?
You were her boy.
I was her boy. So bless her heart. But I didn't know that. I just thought she was bizarre. Yeah. She never touched me inappropriately, ever. Nothing, anything. Never, nothing like that. Just always touchy-feely, right?
Yeah.
And so that's really confusing. And then shortly after they told me this, literally with probably a week or so, both of them started drinking. Now, I don't know. There was a lot going on. Kennedy had just been assassinated in November of '63, right? A few months earlier. Mm-hmm. Dad was working. He was going in and out of the Pentagon, working there. The Cuban Missile Crisis was going on, and there was a lot going on in our country. And so I don't know what it was, if it was that or a combination of them telling me, whatever it was. All I know is these two amazing, loving, kind people started drinking, and it got ugly real fast. My dad turned into an animal. He was just not a nice human when he drank. Now, Pat, my mom, she wasn't so bad, but they were, they started fighting, and, and again, it just went. I went from park bench, from Park West to Park Bench, kind of a thing,
Did you ever find out if there was a catalyst to why that day they told you, and how, why the drinking would start? So, no.
Nope. Never connected the dots on that.
Yeah.
Actually, never connected the dots on my biological father either, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a minute. Yeah. So they started drinking, and so things went to hell pretty fast. Well, they left and went to the store one day. They did that back in those days. You could leave your kids home. You didn't have to worry about it. She just, you call the neighbor across the street and say, hey, Joanne, Bob and I are going to the store. David's home. If he needs you, can you just come over? Oh, yeah, sure. Tell him to come over. I'll fix him a bologna sandwich, kind of thing.
Absolutely.
And so when they left, they were hiding the booze in plain sight. It was in a cabinet, and I knew where it was. And I wanted to know what the hell it was. And so I went and I took it out and I opened it. It was a half gallon of brandy. Then I'm sniffing it, and I was like, oh, man, this is nasty. And I took a coffee cup and I poured it about half full. And for some reason, Wendy, I downed it. And that was it. Stick a fork in me. I'm done. I had no chance. I totally believe 100% I was an alcoholic right on the spot. I started thinking alcoholically, acting alcoholically. It was like pouring rocket fuel inside of me. And so that's when the chase began.
And you were how old?
I was 11.
11 years old.
11 years old. Yeah. Got into my school years. Still had a lot of wonderful things going on in my life, except that I had to come home to alcoholism every day and live around it. And I stayed out of the house quite a bit. And thank God for some of my buddies' fathers who knew what was going on, and they were there for me and helped me and talked to me and helped me get through stuff. And then by the time I got to high school, I was radical. I was mean. It was bad. And so at the very beginning of my junior year, they called me into the principal's office and said, Albin, you're out. We're done. We're expelling you from school. So I got a job that day. I got a really good job that day. And so things just, it escalated from there. And then drugs showed up, and actually drugs were already part of the scene in my younger years. It's once I got into my teens, junior high school, cocaine, heroin, anything that I could try to avoid pain and gain pleasure. That's what I was doing. Yeah. And so, I married my childhood sweetheart. It lasted about 2 weeks. I met a gal in California who literally got me out of California. Later on, got me out here to the East Coast. She really saved my life. There's no doubt about that. She looked at me one day and said, David, I love you. You're a great guy, but I can't do this anymore. You are out of control. And I was mean. I was nasty. When I drank, I was violent.
Yeah.
And so we divorced, and then I met a bartender who had 3 kids, right? And I thought, wow, let me marry her. Endless supply of booze, and maybe this, the kids will slow me down and help me stop. Because I didn't want to act out that way. I didn't want to live that way, but I was, you just can't stop. It's just like you don't know what to do, how to do it, where to do it. And so, and then on June 8th of 1988, I'm living in the basement. The rest of the family's upstairs. And I woke up that morning. I said, that's it. I'm done. I'm out. I'm not going to do this anymore. And I was in so much physical and emotional pain. It was excruciating. So I thought the only real option I have here is to put a bullet in my head. And so I moved forward with that. I went and got my pistol, loaded it, put it in my mouth. And all of a sudden it dawns on me. You know what that's going to do to those 3 kids? Because you're going to be dead, but they got to live with it, pal. You can't do that. Stop. Find another way. There's got to be another option here. And so now I'm mad and angry and frustrated, and I can't even kill myself. And all of a sudden, like a little voice in my head said, "Call Alcoholics Anonymous." What? And you know what's funny about that, Wendy? I didn't even know who the hell AA was. I had no reference for that, right? I didn't know anybody in AA. I'd never been to AA. Where did that come from? So
yeah, I've heard that called a God shot.
You better believe it. That was a God shot directly in my forehead. Yeah. And so I called AA, and I got this wonderful woman on the phone. I affectionately call her Madge today. And the reason is,
she talk like this. She literally, I think she smokes 2 packs of Paul Bone filters a day.
And man, when she was brutal, man, she was in my face. She wanted to know how serious I was. And, do you want to get sober? Do you want to change your life? And, she's the gatekeeper, right? She's the person who's going to make a decision to literally call somebody to come pick me up. Mm-hmm. And apparently I gave her enough information, because she did. That wonderful soul sent a man by the name of Lauren to come pick me up on June 8th, 1988. And that man went with me that day. He got me there early enough that I went to a 12:30, a 4:30, a 6:30, and an 8:30 meeting. And so, I'd never been treated. I'd never had anybody just love me unconditionally for no reason, right? It's like, this guy was going to stay with me. Well, when I got there, it was an all men's group, and they gave me a big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and they signed it. And they wrote something inside the book. I've still got it to this day. It says, before you take that first drink, call one of us. And they put their first name and their phone number in there. And so I went home with that in my back pocket. And the next morning at 8:00 in the morning, my phone rang. And I'm like, hello. And he goes, hey, it's John from AA. How you doing this morning? Real enthusiastic. And I'm going, how do you think I'm doing? I want to kill somebody, literally. And I might start with you calling me at 8:00 in the morning. And John, you'd have to know John. He's like, yeah, I hear you, man. He's an old veteran in AA, right? He knew what was going on. He goes, yeah. He goes, listen, man, we exchanged numbers. I know where you live. You told me last night. He said, look, man, I'm going to come pick you up. Let's go to breakfast, and I want to take you to an AA meeting. What? Who are these people? Yeah. What in the hell is going on here? This tough love, unconditional. It's what AA, I believe, is one of the most beautiful organizations on earth. Yeah. Because these people were loving me, because I certainly wasn't capable of it in that moment, that's for sure. Yeah. So he came and got me, and 2 days turned into a week, and a week turned into a month. And once I got to a month, they gave me a little medallion, and it said 30 days sober. And then I got one for 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and then 1 year. And of course, this last June 8th of 88 was 35 years. Well, what happened is that when I was getting sober, I got introduced to the personal development industry at the same time. And the reason that happened that way is because I've got insomnia, and I'm up late at night all the time. I can't sleep. My sleep patterns are all over the place. Well, there I am one night, 3:00 in the morning, watching an infomercial, and there he is, Mr. Enthusiasm, right? A young Tony Robbins is selling through Gunthy Ranker his personal power program. And I couldn't stand it. I was like, right, you pompous ass, man. He was all motivated and la da da. But I tell you what, he got me. He got me saying two things. One, he said, we'll do more to avoid pain than we will to gain pleasure. And I said, dude, that's why I drank. He nailed me. And then he said, the way human beings make decisions is we make them out of inspiration or desperation. And I thought, whoa, I'm pretty desperate. Maybe I break out the American Express card. I spent $179 in 1988 and bought his personal power program. And so they sent it, they sent it to you. And it came on these little white things when he called cassette tapes.
Yep.
Like some of your listeners are going to go, what is a cassette tape?
Right.
They're in the Smithsonian. They're right next to reel and 8-tracks.
That's right. That's right. And VHS tapes.
VHS tape. Oh my God. And so I went through the program. I did what the man taught me to do, and it worked. Well, I ended up loaning my program to a buddy in AA. I'm talking to him one time, and he comes in and he goes, man, what's going on with you? Why are you so motivated all the time? And, you lost a lot of weight. You look good. You're working out. You started your own business. You got out of that relationship. You're taking control of your life. Man, it's beautiful. What's going on? I go, well, other than AA, I've been listening to this guy by the name of Tony Robbins. And he goes, oh, man, I know who Tony Robbins is. I bought his book, but I never read it. I went, oh, good job on that. I said, well, look, I'll loan you my program, but you got to promise me you'll go through it. I'm not going to give it to you unless you make a commitment. He goes, dude, if you'll loan it to me, I promise I'll go through it. And he did. Well, 7 years later, right? This is all happening in 1988, 1989. Well, now we're in 1995. Dan calls me on the phone and said, dude, hey, did you know that Tony Robbins is coming to town? I'm like, no clue. He goes, dude, we got to go. You got me into this, man. Go with me. Will you go with me? Yeah, I'll go with you. He goes, great. Let me call you back. That's all I needed to hear. So he calls me back like an hour later and he goes, done. And here's what we need to do. Or what they told us to do, I should say. He said, well, bring a good attitude and be ready to play full out. I said, Dan, how much was the ticket? He said, $695. I said, $700? And you're asking me if I'll play full out? Okay. Yeah, I think I'll do that for $700. I mean, what's that worth today? 795, like 7.2 million? I don't know. Right? And then he said, bring snacks and drink a lot of water. Bring water and snacks with you because you're going to spend a lot of time in the room. What an understatement that is. And I said, okay, great. And so he's getting ready to hang up. He goes, oh, wait, by the way, I forgot to tell you something. We're going to be doing a firewalk. And I remember thinking, oh, well, hell no. You may do a firewalk, Dan, but I'm sure it's not going to do any firewalk. That's not going to happen. Well, this is all going out of my head. I'm not saying anything to Dan. I don't want him to think I'm a sissy, right?
Yeah, right.
And I said, oh, yeah, sure, Dan, firewalk. Yeah, real interesting. Great. Yeah. Hung up the phone. I'm like, oh, no, that's a hard no. We're not doing that. That's insane. And you know what's funny about that? I don't know what a firewalk is.
I was going to say, I don't think I would know.
I didn't.
Yeah.
But
it had fire,
it had walk, and, fear's controlling my life and had been controlling my life up until this point. And so that's a hard no for me. Well, we get to the event. Tony takes the stage at 2:00 in the afternoon. And the next thing we know, it's after midnight. Bring snacks and water or you'll starve, dehydrate, right? I'm in a room. We're all in a room. By the way, I'm with 3,500 people, and we've been in that room for 10 hours with Tony Robbins. And also 3,500 people. Okay. That's a small event for him now, by the way. Wow. And all of a sudden, Tony goes, take your shoes off. And I'm like, oh, no. Now, I know where you're going with that one. I ain't doing that. Well, the next thing I'm looking at, guess what 3,500 people are doing? They're taking their shoes off. And I'm like, no, people, don't go towards the light. He's tricking you, right? You're going to fall for it. Well, now I've got a dilemma. What am I going to do? Because if I don't take my shoes off and go outside this big parking lot, everybody's going to know that I'm the sissy in the group. So I'm like, well, just chill out, man. Just take your shoes off and relax. When you get out there, just go hide in the back. No one's going to know. No one's going to find you, right? Just chill. Just take your shoes off.
Yeah.
I take my shoes off. Well, it gets worse. So as he's getting everybody, 3,500 people to go out in this parking lot, he gets them to start clapping and chanting. So now you've got 3,500 people going, yes, yes, yes. And I'm walking out there going, no, it's going to happen. Well, it gets worse. You get out there, he's got African drummers.
Oh my God.
So it's bum, 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 bum. And everybody's, yes, yes. And when you go out into the parking lot, over in the corner, he's got this giant fire. It's huge. It's probably 30 feet wide, 70 feet long. It's been burning all day. So they just keep loading it with wood all day long. Well, at the end of the evening, at midnight, it renders. You have this giant, beautiful pile of blue coals. It's gorgeous. Well, how you do this logistically is they would take a wheelbarrow over to that big pit and they'd fill it up with shovel. Then they take a wheelbarrow and they move it in between 2 lanes of sod, grass,
Okay.
a fire lane, right? 3 feet wide, 18 feet long. Then they just take a flathead shovel and they sprinkle those coals on top of that grass, and that's what you walk on. Well, I'm having none of it, right? I'm out. Nope, not doing this, and I'm hiding in the back. Well, Tony Robbins knows that this is probably one of the most powerful, life-changing experiences on the planet, by far. And so he also knows that there's going to be people like me, and he also knows that he doesn't want us to miss out because we probably need it the most. And so what's he do? He trains people to come find you.
Oh, man.
Literally. And so I'm back there minding my own business, thinking I'm safe. I've got this. I'm going to, here I go. Here's fear controlling my life. Well, next thing you know, here comes this guy. And he makes eye contact with me. He gets about 20 feet from me. And all of a sudden he's looking at me and he gives me this really weird look, like, like a dog that hears a funny noise, right? He goes, "Are you okay?" And when we're not okay, what do we say?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
"Oh, yeah. No. Oh, hey, man, I'm fine. All good here, man. Move along. Nothing to see here, pal." And all of a sudden this guy goes, "Well, hey, man, you going to walk tonight?" And I said, "Absolutely not." Like, you idiot. Did you not get the memo? How dare you even ask me that? And then all of a sudden, he asked me a question. One question, one stranger. I don't know who this guy is to this day. I don't know. He has no idea what happened with one question to me and all that has unfolded in my life. I mean, I'm not here on your podcast without this guy, right?
Yeah.
And he said, "Wouldn't you at least like to watch?" And I'm thinking, yeah, let's do that. Let's watch these people burn their feet off. This should be fun and entertaining. And I said, "Sure." And he goes, "Well, you can't see anything from back here. I'm 100 yards away, right? I can hear it. It's going nuts. Everybody's chanting and clapping and the drums are going. Big fire over there. People are already firewalking. They're screaming and yelling and celebrating. I mean, what a dog and pony show, right? But I'm back. There's 3,000 people in front of me. I can't see anything." He said, "Well, just get in line and eventually you'll get up there close enough. You'll be able to see it." And so I took the bait. I got in line. Right. So I'm kind of walking along and and all of a sudden this guy comes up to me and he whispers in my ear and he said, "He knows when you're ready. When he says go, you go." He just disappeared into the night. And I'm like, what the hell was that? Who was that? What was that about? And so now I'm walking along, really, again, sea of people, can't see anything, but I get to a point where I can see at an angle. And I'm watching it, and they're doing it, Wendy. Every race, every creed, every color, every age, they are firewalking. They are walking on hot coals. And my brain's like, what is wrong with these people? Why would they do that metaphorically here? What's happening?
For 18 feet.
For what?
Or like how? So just it's the sod. So is it?
Oh yeah. So it's about in between 15, 18 feet long. So they're taking 4, 5, 6 steps per person, right?
Yeah. And
so now I'm mesmerized. It's like a car accident. We're not supposed to look at it, right? But what do? We stare at it. So same thing here. I can't take my eyes off. I'm in a trance and I'm watching these people firewalk. And I'm just kind of cruising along and I'm watching. All of a sudden, boom, guess where I am? I'm at the front of the line. Like, how in the hell did I get here? And I'm looking down and that lane, right? That fire lane, it's 3 feet wide, 15, 16 feet probably. And the coals are glowing bright red, right? And there's a wheelbarrow there and you can feel the heat coming off. And I am staring into the abyss. And I'm pretty sure that my heart's going to jump out of my chest any moment because it's pumping so hard. And there's a trainer standing there. And the trainer says, "Eyes up." Like, oh, shit. Oh, that's right. Oh, okay. Eyes up. Yeah, that's right. I was in a room with Tony for 10 hours. What did he teach me to do? Keep your eyes up. Don't stare at what you fear. Look to the celebration end. Focus on that. And so now my eyes are up, right? And he goes, and the trainer goes, squeeze your fist and say yes. And I went, yes. And he went, stronger. And I went, yes. Well, he could tell. I wasn't in a peak state. I was leaving a ton on the table, and he knew it. And he screamed at me. And I screamed as loud as I could, and I threw my hands in the air, and I went, yes. And he goes, go, go, go. Ooh. I took off. Well. Here's the first thing I learned about firewalking. When you take the first step, oh, you'll take the second, third, fourth, and fifth. I promise you, right? Well, it stages two guys at the end, and they lock arms, and they stop you. They catch you. And they're like, stop, wipe your feet and celebrate. And I'm wiping my feet, and as I start to celebrate, I go, oh, my gosh, I've burnt myself really, really bad. And all of a sudden, I lift up my foot, and I look at it. It's dirty, but there's no burn. Oh, it's my other foot. Yeah, it's dirty too, but there's no burns. And now I'm looking back, and I just walked on coals that are 1,000 degrees. I didn't burn myself, and I don't have a clue how I did it. None, right? You ever done that? You did something really cool, really awesome, and you don't really know how you did it, but you're like,
yes,
yep, that's me. I'm that guy. I did that, right? Well, that's kind of the mindset. Well, now I'm in the celebration end, and people are losing it. They are jumping up and down and screaming and celebrating. I mean, it is exhilarating. And to this day, I've never experienced anything like it other than a Tony Robbins seminar or my own events, that I do now. And so, but here's where it gets super, super interesting. The next day, right? This is a 4-day event of his. Okay. It's called UPW, Unleash the Power Within, the Firewalk Experience. So that was day one, the evening of. Now we're coming into day two. And now we're 3,500 people standing in the foyer getting ready to go into the venue. I've never seen anything like this in my life. It was so beautiful. It was just gorgeous. People were hugging, and they were laughing, and they were talking, and they were communicating, and it was so humanistic. It was so beautiful to watch. Yeah. And I'm thinking, what the hell? Did we drink the Kool-Aid last night? Look how people are getting along. They don't know each other. We're just a bunch of strangers. And yet there was a connectivity between us unlike anything I've ever experienced. I call it, it's very similar to a near-death experience that you would go through with somebody.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, this is mind-blowing to me. Later in the event, I got to know one of Tony's trainers, a guy by the name of Ted Macy. Super, super sweet guy. Him and his wife, Mary, both trainers for Tony. And so we're just talking. I go, dude, this must be really incredible to be in this environment on a regular basis. He goes, oh, man, are you kidding me? It's beautiful. He goes, as a matter of fact, he said, see all those people over there with those black shirts with the pink writing on the back? Yeah. He goes, they're all volunteers, man. They're just like you. They came to a firewalk. They came to the event. And they wanted to come back and give back. He says, so, man, when you get home, call Robbins Research, tell them you want an application for a crew membership. They'll send you one. Fill it out, send it back. Maybe you'll get lucky. Guess what I did? It's exactly what I did. Yeah. Like about 9 weeks after I filled out that form, I got a letter in the mail, and it said, Dave Albin, congratulations. You've been selected to crew with the Anthony Robbins companies in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Well, my foot was in the door, and that's all it took. That's all it took. I fell in love with the environment. I fell in love with the culture. I fell in love with the positive aspects about things because I'd lived such a negative life for so long. And being around like-minded people, it's phenomenal, right? We are who we spend time with. We all know that, right?
Absolutely.
Love your family, choose your friends, choose wisely because you will become who you spend time with. What's that? Take the 5 closest people in your life, average out what they make, and you're within 10% of what they earn.
Yep.
So there I am in the environment, and the application's pretty thorough. So they saw that I lived on a farm, so I knew how to use a log splitter and tools and all that. I had a security and a military background, so they went, we could probably put him on the security detail to help take care of Tony's celebrities. Mm-hmm. So that happened, and they put me on the fire team, put me outside building the fire, and I started learning all the logistics and learning everything about it. And then shortly after that, I think I crewed maybe 5 or 6 times. Mm-hmm. They offered me a subcontractor's position. Now, as a volunteer, you pay everything.
Wow.
Right? You got to pay your airfare, your hotel, your food, everything. So that's a couple $1,000 every time you want to go do a gig with Tony.
Wow.
So now as a subcontractor, they're paying my way, right? And they're giving me a little salary, literally a couple $100. So that was in 96, 97. I went through all that. And then 2003, my life forever changed. Tony offered me the captain's position to take over all of Tony's firewalks globally. When I originally was offered, I said, guys, I can't. And they're like, whoa, what do you can't? Hold on. Tell Tony Robbins no. And he's like, well, what's up, man? Why couldn't you do this? And I said, because I homeschool my kids and I'm there for them. I ain't going to do that. He goes, oh, wow. Okay. Well, what if we paid to have them travel with us? Will that make a difference? Well, it just might.
Wow.
So,
how old were your kids when you started?
They were young. Ben was, my daughter was 6, 7. My son was 9, 10.
Wow.
They had done their first firewalk in 2002, right after 9/11. So my daughter was 6 the first time she firewalked. My son was 9. So there we go, mom and dad and the kids on the road with Tony Robbins, traveling the world, right? What an experience.
Yeah.
Right? You can't even, people ask me, and I'm like, I can't explain that. I can't tell you. All I know is, were my kids influenced? You better believe they were. Absolutely. Because they're around celebrities and, CEOs and, you name it. Every level of person out there. My kids got to be around all that. It was a beautiful thing. It was absolutely spectacular. So that was in 2003. 2005, we go to London and we set the world record. So that's where we firewalked 12,300 people. Now, I say world record. I want to be very clear, full disclosure. Guinness Book was not there with us. We didn't even ask them, right? Yeah. But I am 99.999% sure that's the biggest firewalk that's ever been done on our planet. And the only other firewalk that's ever come anywhere close to that is another Tony Robbins seminar. So that was a lot of fun. And so that was in 2005. And then in 2014, my life was forever changed again. I'm driving down the road, my phone rings, and it's this company called Google. Maybe you've heard of them. They want to know if I'm the Dave Albin that does the firewalks for Tony Robbins. Yes. What can I do for you? They're like, well, if you're not under any contractual obligation or non-compete, we'd like to talk to you about hiring you. Okay. Well, homeboy's a free agent. What you got?
Yeah.
Right. And so they wanted to do a firewalk, but they wanted to do it in the middle of the day. And I said, I will do it in the middle of the day. It's a safety issue. Ain't no way. Can't do it. I got to see the coals, man. I got to see the color of them. There's just too many things that can go wrong with a firewalk during the day. However, I'll tell you what I could do for you is I could do a glass walk. They're like, a glass walk? What do you mean? Yeah, where I'll teach these 148 executives that you want to do a firewalk, they'll do a glass walk. They're like, ooh, tell us about that. So we ended up in 2014, I did my first glass walk for Google, and we went back the following year. And that's really that's when the light bulb went off. That's when I realized the marketplace for corporate team building experiences that actually work, that actually cause change, right? Because we all know, most of us in the personal development industry, we know what doesn't challenge you doesn't change you. You're not going to sit your butt in a seminar and change your life without getting up and doing something. That's not how Navy SEALs are trained, right?
Right.
And so that's what, and I even had a conversation with Google. One of the girls pulled me aside and said, you ought to do this on your own, man. There's a huge marketplace out there for a guy like you, because companies need this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And then, so after Google, the next thing I know, I'm at NASA, and then Notre Dame, and then Virginia Tech, and then Remax, and Microsoft, and Heineken, and the EO organization. I mean, it just exploded from there.
Yeah.
So Firewalk Productions was born in 2014, and we've been going at it ever since.
That is incredible. And there's so many things I want to grab onto in that story, because it's fire. I mean, it's amazing. But I think when these companies, world-renowned companies, come to you, what do you think the main transformation they're looking for? What do you think? What are they looking for when they hire
you? Yeah. Great question. I think there's 3 types.
Okay.
I think you have an organization that is out there kicking butt, and they know there's another level. So let's kick it up a notch. Let's not rest on our laurels, man. We're doing really great. Let's fire it up to the next level. So there's those. And I've done several like that. I think there's ones that are middle of the road. Things aren't bad. Things aren't good. They're just, they need a kick in the butt. There's that one. And then there's when, stuff's falling apart, which I think is what's happening to a lot of companies today. That's most of my calls now. That's where they're coming from, because there's so much dissension going on amongst the troops, right? They're still fighting over masks and vaccines and political bullshit. I mean,
yeah.
And that's going to, if you allow that to take place in your company as a CEO, that's on you.
Yeah.
And I get it. That's a very daunting task. What are you going to do to fix it? But if you don't fix it, your bottom line's going down. You can't expect to put two people in a room that don't like each other or don't get along, and expect them to perform at a high level. It ain't going to happen. No.
Right.
So that's when they bring me in. Now I do something, I'll share it here on your podcast. So I add something to the Firewalk now. I add quite a bit, actually. I add the board break, right? And so the reason I did that is because now it's a board break. It's a martial arts move, right? Anybody that's ever taken martial arts, anytime you graduate, from one belt to another, you typically break a board. You'll break it with your hand. You'll break it with your knee. You'll break it with your foot. You break it with an elbow, whatever, and that graduates you into your next level of belt. Well, so what I do, it's pretty much the same thing, except what I do is I have them write something on the front of the board they want to move towards.
Okay.
I have them write something on the back of the board that they need to move away from. And then I have them write anybody's name on the board. This is where it gets pretty juicy. They write anybody's name on the board that they're in conflict with, right? So if you're out of sorts with somebody, if forgiveness and reconciliation is part of that relationship, it ends tonight. Stop carrying that around with you. That's insane. You can't perform at a high level carrying that resentment around. So it ends tonight. And then to agree to write a passage, I have them write anybody's name on the board that they've lost. So it becomes, I think you mentioned it earlier, and I talked ancestral, right? And so you invite that energy to the process. They break the board. We go outside. They firewalk. We bring it back. They throw the board into the fire. We capture it on video and pictures. And then I take them through what I call the Ho'oponopono heart hug. So we hug this way, right? Well, if you do it the opposite way, your heart's on top of their heart. And then I have them do 3 deep diaphragmatic breaths. And by the time you get into or out of the second breath, their hearts start beating at the same time. So now I got them, right? Yep. And you got them. And so problem solved.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to watch. And so it's just made it, a beautiful thing for me in my life and what I get to do and how I get to do it. I had a really good friend of mine who's a really incredible entrepreneur. His name's Matt Schaub. He wrote a book called Painted Baby. He's a painter. He wrote a book called Painted Baby. He took one of his worst days in business and turned it into one of his best. And so from an entrepreneurial standpoint, this book is phenomenal. So anyway, when he launched his book, he wrote, I'm in his book. And so he asked me to come out and help him launch it. So we're out there that morning. He just bought a beautiful new house on the lake, and we're up morning and we're drinking Spanish coffee because that's his thing. And we're talking. And he said, hey, man, have you ever thought about starting an academy? And I went, not really. He goes, dude, you ought to consider that. And then that way your legacy and, you can outreach much further. And I went, wow, that's a pretty good idea. And so I did. I started it. My next academy is coming up this October. And so what I do there is I bring up 9 people. That's it. Only 9. There's a reason for that. I talk about it in the academy. And I bring up 9 people up here to the Appalachian Mountains where I live, upstate in the upper mountains of Northwest North Carolina. And they come up here, and then I teach them, what I've learned and what works of, 3 decades being in the personal development industry.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's a lot. I mean, I can tell by this conversation and knowing, there's so many principles behind leadership. And what I hear in this, like, you're really connecting that mind, body, and spirit intersection, and that, like, the embodiment of what it means to lead yourself and then be able to lead other people. That's really coming through strong for me. And there's something I want to ask you, because so many people that I coach and you just see it in America today, there's such a high level of anxiety out there, right?
Yeah.
And you were touching on that.
Yeah.
And I don't think that people realize that the level of avoidance in their life so often equals the level of anxiety, right?
Right. Yeah. Right. Because I could.
Picturing this firewalk experience and just that ability to act when you're scared.
Well,
Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, I come from a place as life is not as good as it seems. Life is not as bad as it seems. Reality's somewhere in the middle. And if you go Google Oprah's Firewalk, she did it in 2010 at the LA Convention Center, and she was losing it. she was out of her mind. She came there, she wasn't going to do it, then she realized that she probably needed to do it. And so now that struggle is going on in our heads, right? We all deal with it all the time, and she's dealing with it. And finally, Tony just gives it to her and then lays it out. He goes, Oprah, what's the worst that can happen? Burn your feet off and die? Come on. Well, it's the same thing I was going through. Firewalk, I said no. And somebody came along. It's funny when sometimes life can be so simple if we just trust the process. Because here's one guy that asked me one question, completely changed my life. And again, it's all about taking that first step. Yep. And so she does. So she firewalks. And here's the beautiful part. You got to see her. When she celebrates in the celebration, she's like a little kid. She's jumping up and down and screaming and yelling. And then the cameras follow her, and she goes over into the spot, and they film it. And it's a beautiful thing to watch, because here's one of the most successful humans on earth, and she makes one of the most important business decisions of her life within seconds of firewalking. Can you hear her? She says it. She goes, "This is the next chapter." She's looking back at the fire. "This is the next chapter, people." And that's when she created the next chapter. Wow. So yeah, I've seen it all. I mean, at Firewalks, I've seen what happens. And we're doing it culturally a lot different than, the Phoenicians or the people of India or the Spaniards or the Native American Indians or the Hawaiians or the Polynesians or the Indo-Europeans. Firewalking has been around 1,000 years. Yeah. Tony knew it was a powerful experience. He did his research. He's not a dumb guy. Super, super smart in this area. And so he knew that it would be so life-changing. And that's why he does it on day one, because he's got leverage on you for 3 more days, right? Because if you ask yourself the question, just like I did that night, I walked on coals that were 1,000 degrees. I had no clue how I did it. But then I also said, so if I can walk on coals that are 1,000 degrees, what else can I do? And so I went from dealing with fear, which was forget everything and run, or there's other words you can use too, to face everything and rise. Or as we like to say in Alcoholics Anonymous, false images appearing real. And so fear had taken so much from me. And so that was really what opened the door for me to take my life in a completely different direction. And I'm just the guy that, people say, how did you get there? And, like, I don't know. I just don't. I just, I made that left-hand turn in Albuquerque, as Bug Bunny says. So, yeah. And here I am. And when I retired from Tony's organization, we had a long conversation in the green room. And one of the last things he said to me is, he goes, "Albie, with great wisdom comes great responsibility. Make us proud." And so, I bring my A game to every single event, because I never know who's in the audience. I never know whose life I'm going to influence. I walk kids all the time. This is my superpower, if you really get down to it. Give me kids.
Oh gosh. That's my passion, is this next generation. I was telling you, I started because I've got 4 of my own, but I'm watching so much of what I'm doing here is based on, I'm just not happy with the message that's being taught to the next generation. The toughness, the resilience, the things that you were talking about the past generations. And yes, we can evolve and we can do things better and different, but there is a lack of resilience that they are being taught that I love, that come through these stories. So I love hearing you. If you get a hold of those kids, man,
Yeah,
They don't know what they're made of, and they're so incredible.
The school system is broken. It's been broken for a long time.
Yeah.
It's influenced by politicians who fail every single day.
Yeah.
And so when you can encourage a child and show them what's possible, and you raise their self-belief, their self-confidence, and their self-worth, boom, they're programmed for life. You can't unprogram. Let them break a board, let them firewalk, let them throw that into the fire. That changes their life forever. And so that's my passion. That's what I mean, don't get me wrong. I love doing corporations and they pay the bills and all that. But my philanthropic work and my benevolent work is for twofold. One, kids, two, veterans.
Wow.
Because
we are in sync, man. You got to check out some more of my podcasts. These are my two. I knew, I believe everything happens for a reason. And when I came across your profile, I did not know that about you, but it makes perfect sense now.
Well, I'm a vet, and my dad, deep rooted, and these men and women, these brave men and women are coming back, and then they separate, they lose their purpose. All of that kicks in, and they think they're alone. They've got nowhere to go. It's interesting. And I was talking to a vet here the other day, and he said, one of the things that we need to watch out for and be very careful with is that when a vet's circling the idea of suicide, they won't call their spouse. If they call anybody, they'll call somebody that they were in with and a friend. So when you get that call, take it. Don't look at that phone and go, I'll call you back later. No, don't do that. In fact, I'm in the middle right now and would love to have however you'd like to be involved, creating a firewalk that's called the Do No Harm Firewalk. So we take the veterans and I have them stand and take an oath, and they have to promise to do no harm, because this is a rite of passage, right? This has been around 1,000 years. So if I'm going to take you out there and spiritually connect you to this process, you have to promise me that you'll do no harm to yourself or anybody else. And so they take the oath, and I take them through the board break, and then I firewalk them. And then, we give them things like this, right? This is just a little container of the ball, right? They can set it on their desk or whatever. And we have, medallions and stuff that they can wear and connect them.
Yes.
Give them one powerful connection in the brain, not to take their own life.
26. That statistic, 26 a day. It is.
And
it can be higher at the holidays.
Well, here's the challenge with that number. Yeah. And I've gotten so deep into this is that, that's the ones that left the note. A lot of them don't. The number I'm hearing from my vets is closer to 40.
Yep.
I can't handle that.
It's devastating. Like, I can't get rid of my chills, and I can't handle it either. And I would love to stay connected. I've got a bunch of stuff we're working on this. So for sure. Would love to be involved in any way that we can help, because it's devastating. It's devastating to families and communities. And you guys are our strongest, most amazing examples of Americans. And if we can't get that right, we're in trouble. We have to be, we have to be supporting that community in every way, shape, and form. And I don't see it happening the way it should.
And that's part of it. Yeah, you said community, and that's it. Because what I'm thinking too is, look, okay, you're going to take your oath. I get that, but there's another part of that. The other part of that oath is you got to go recruit. Yeah. Go get your fellow brothers and sister vets and get them into this community. Let's get them across the fire. And so, because it really breaks down to purpose. Yeah. They lose sight of who they are and what's going on. And so, you know what? If we can save one.
Amen.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, this has been, I could see a million other directions we could go with this. We could keep going, but I would love to stay connected. And there's one question that I ask everybody that comes on my podcast, because I'm really after this generational learning and hindsight, what we learn by what we go through. And if there was a piece of advice that you could give to your younger self, what would that be?
This too shall pass. Right? Yeah. Things going bad. It's a shit storm. Everything's just completely falling apart. Guess what? This too shall pass. Yeah. Everything going great. Everything's wonderful. kicking on all 8 cylinders. Get this too shall pass.
Yep.
And what I like to say is, just stop looking for heroes and be one. I believe that every human being on this planet, I think the 2 most important times in anybody's life is the moment they're born and the moment they figure out why. And then one of my mentors said something to me that I've never forgotten. I live by this creed, and that is, he said that every human has 2 lives. And the second one starts when you realize you have only one.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Powerful. It's powerful. There's a lot of books I've read. David Brooks has one on the 2 halves of life. Richard Rohr has one on the 2 halves of life. There've got to be a ton of them out there, but there's so much truth to that. So I'm with you, and gosh, I thank you for sharing all of this wisdom. And I want people to know where to be able to find you. So we'll put it in the show notes, but let them know.
Sure. My website, firewalkadventures.com. We've got one spot, I believe, left for the Academy in October. Somebody had to back out, so that came available. I don't know when this airs, so I don't know if that'll be available now.
Couple weeks, yeah.
Okay, so it might. And then everything about, everything we do. There's the firewalking, the glass walking, and the Academy, and all my contact information is there. So I'm real accessible, really easy to get a hold of. And again, if you've got kids or you got vets, then I've got an answer.
Amazing. I thank you so much for all that you're doing to make this country better. It's something that I'm deeply passionate about. So I'm really happy we connected. And thank you everybody for being here today on What I Meant to Say with me and Dave Albin. And I'm just here to remind you to be real, be you, and be better. Thank you for joining us on What I Meant to Say, another production of Inspired Edutainment, brought to you by Be Better Media.